then let's talk about how to handle errors at runtime. So we talked about how to handle errors in debug mode, but how do you deal with errors at runtime? In other words, I've deployed this to the server. It's no longer mine. It's running. Some DBA is dealing with this, and there's an error. Somebody deleted a table, or somebody did something crazy. How do I deal with that? Well, I don't deal with it. My DBA is going to be doing it, but they're probably going to come back and ask me. So we want to be able to set up a way to deal with errors in the package at runtime. So we've got error handling in control flow. We've already pretty much covered that. You're going to deal with your your precedence constraints, and you're going to deal with completed, failed, and successful. And you can also, as we looked at, you can deal with expressions in there. So that's primarily how you're going to deal with problems in runtime in the control flow. You will also have the event handlers that we talked about. But on data flow, I don't have event handlers. So what do I do there? Well, I'll show you, I'll demonstrate this to you in just a second, but you can redirect any rows that are failed. And the general idea, to give you the overview first, the general idea is I'm reading a bunch of records from a table and something goes wrong. Well, one of those records was populated weirdly or something went wrong. I can actually just take that out to an entirely different stream, take a data flow path out for those records that are failed. What I usually do is write it to a text file, and then I go back and review that text file. And then I just deal with the one-offs that way. But you could do whatever you wanted to. So event handlers, again, there's that event handler tab. Every executable and the package itself has a set of events. You can enable an event handler for any one of those events and then write code to do whatever you want. To be perfectly honest with you, the only event handler I deal with at runtime, so in other words, after I've shipped this, is the on error. The rest of them seem to get in the way. But I do have an on error event handler, and it's just a generic one that I copy and paste into each of the executables. And it basically does a logging kind of thing. Now, occasionally I'll look at it and say, if it's going to fail here, I know what the problem is. And I might try to kind of self-heal and fix the problem. It doesn't usually work. You give it a try, you do your best. If it's going to work, great, but it probably won't. And so most of the time in the event handlers, I end up just logging very specific information. All right, so let's look at how to handle this in data flow. We've kind of already covered most of the other things in other areas, but we haven't covered this. Same thing here. We're going to copy our source file. We're going to load our data through a data flow. We're going to do the data conversion. It's going to give us an error, and we're going to then delete the file. Now, I'm not going to run it again. We already know the error is going to happen. We know where it's going to happen. It's going to happen right here. So what I want to do is take that row that has the error in it and deal with it one-off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a destination. We'll just do a flat file destination over here. And I'm going to click on data conversion, and you notice there's a red data flow path. This is the error one. I'm going to grab this and drag it over to this destination. And now this pops up. There are only two possible columns, the product ID and the price columns. And there are a couple of possibilities that are problem. One is just a generic error. Something went wrong, I don't know what. And the other is a truncation error. I tried to convert this, but it was too long, kind of a thing. I tried to convert the number 256,212 into a tiny int, and it wouldn't fit. That would be a truncation error. To be perfectly honest with you, I have never, so far anyway, distinguished between these. I am just, for my purposes, going to deal with any error. So with any error, you can have one of three possibilities. One, you can just fail the component. That's always the default. And we've seen that. If something goes wrong, this task fails. We can ignore the failure. Not sure that's a wise thing to do, but we can just say, you know what, if it fails, just ignore it and move on, get the rest of the records. Okay? Or we can redirect the row. And that would send that one row out through this data flow path. Well, in fact, that's what I want to do with all of these. So I'm actually going to select, just do a shift click and choose all of my things and tell them to redirect the row and apply it. So now, no matter what column, no matter what error, it's going to redirect the row out to my flat file destination. Now all I need to do is configure this and create a connection manager. So I'm going to create a new connection manager. It'll be a delimited file. I'm going to put that in we'll just put it in demo files mod 6, and we'll call this error rows or something like that. And I'm going to make it a CSV file so I can open it up in the spreadsheet. And then I will call this error rows CM connection manager, whatever you want to call it. Now I want this to be delimited. I do want the column names in the first row. And here, by the way, we won't need to here, but you might have columns where it contains text like last name, comma, space first, in which case you do not want a comma delimiter. You'd want a tab delimiter or something else. We'll just write this as a column delimiter. We'll preview our data. We won't see anything. But I did want to show you it's going to go those three columns, plus it's going to add the error code and the error column. So what went wrong and which column it went wrong with. Oh, I forgot to look at the mappings. Always makes you look at the mappings. There they are. They're good. Okay. Now when I run this, the error still exists, but this didn't fail. Notice it had 3 rows coming in from the file. 2 rows were written to the staging table, and 1 row was written out to this flat file. It's no longer an error because I dealt with the error by redirecting it to this file. I can come out here and open up that file and see right away. There's the problem right there. So I would need to go back to my source data and fix that, or deal with it one-off situation one way or the other. Without doing this, I end up either just ignoring errors, which is not a good idea, or having my whole package fail, which is also not a good idea. All right.